Now, before we go into it, I would like to talk a little bit about Hinduism.
Hina Ben,
Yes.
that's it. Can you just speak a little bit louder? That'll be great, or come nearer the mic. That'll be
Okay.
really.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. And so, in Hinduism, human life is believed to comprise of 4 stages, and these are called ashrams. And every person should ideally go through each stage. Is that okay?
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. So these 4 ashrams are called, the first one is called Brahmacharya ashram, the second one is Grihastha ashram, third one is Vanprastha ashram, and fourth one is Sannyas ashram. Now, ideally, the crucial piece of this ashram lifestyle is its focus on dharma, that is moral rightness. Dharma underlies many things in Hindu life. In the 4 ashrams, dharma is firstly, in the first ashram, is learned, and then it is practiced, then it is taught to other people, and then it is realized himself. So some people do go through from the first straight to the fourth. They do not get into Grihastha or Vanprastha. Okay, but this is the norm. Most of the people will go through these 4 stages. Now, next, I would like to share about Hinduism. The other thing is it was prevalent at Mahavir Bhagwan's time, the Varna Vyavastha, which is caste system. According to Hinduism, it was Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. So really, Brahmins were traditionally priests and scholars, Kshatriya were ruler and soldiers, Vaishya were merchant, and Shudra was laborer, servant, like like that. But Bhagwan Mahavir was remarkably revolutionary in this aspect. He himself was preaching till he was 72 years old, as you all know, going from one place to another. He disregarded this system of 4 stages of life as well as caste and creed system. His thoughts were different in these aspects. And you know, in Gujarati, we always say, Jagyatyarthi Savar. So with Mahavir Bhagwan, it was like that. Whenever somebody feels the need of going into following the religion and renounce the world, he was ready. It does not matter what caste the person is from or what age the person was. So he encouraged every person in his sangh, old, young, person from any caste or creed. He gave Diksha, and for example, you know, he gave Diksha to Atimukti Muni, Anathi Muni, Subahu Kumar, in fact, to Rishikesh Muni, although he was from Chandal caste. And you know, Chandal is a very low caste. So today, we are going to look at a beautiful example of Mahavir Bhagwan's amazing inspiration to young Muni, Meg Kumar, by delving deep into his heart and touching it with kindness. So let us know the story of inspiring story of Meg Kumar, how it all happens. So there used to be Rajgrahi Nagri, and where King Shrenik used to rule, and he had quite a few wives, but of course one of them was Tarini, and he had twins as well, and one of them was Abhay Kumar, who was his right hand. Now one night, Darini was sleeping, and she saw a beautiful white elephant coming from the clouds and entering her mouth. She thought to herself, this is very beautiful dream, and she thought, let me just go and speak to the king. So she goes and speaks to the king about her dream. Now, The king is, of course, in the night, he told, what is the matter? So he asked her, and she narrated her dream to King Shrenik. And then uh, Queen Shrenik comforted her and told her, oh, that's very good. Soon you will be a mother of a son, a great son. And then she goes back to her room and she thinks to herself, should I go back to sleep? And then she thinks, no, it's a beautiful dream. I would like to sit and pray. So she's praying. And then next day, King calls the priest as usual and talks to the priest about the dream. And he wanted to know what did this dream mean. And then um, the priest told them that you will have a beautiful son who will increase your name, fame, and wealth as well. And after he said that, obviously, king gives him some money and everything, and he goes home. And when at her during her pregnancy, when she was on third month, as usual, so many ladies they have this weird crave about some different things. So Queen Dharini had a crave as well, but that was she was not sure should I tell other people or not because it was not the season that what she wanted. So she is thinking, and then King is asking her, "You look very puzzled. What is the matter?" And she was hesitant to tell the king. At the end, King really convinced her to tell him, and she is saying, so this was her cradle. She said, "My lord, my desire is that there are clouds in the sky with thunderstorms. Rain is sprinkling. There is greenery everywhere on the earth. Peacocks are dancing, and I am sitting on white elephant in such a pleasant season. You are sitting behind me with an ornamental umbrella, and our procession is moving from the middle of the city." Now, of course, this was not the season of rain, so it was difficult, but King did not just say that. He said, "Don't worry, we'll try and do as much we can." And he's thinking to himself, how am I going to bring the rain? And he talks to his right hand, also his son, Abhay Kumar, and he tells him that this is what the queen wants. So Abhay Kumar tells him, don't worry, everything is possible. And he does the process for 3 days. So he goes fasting for 3 days without water and food. And he pleases this god friend of his. As soon as 3 days are over, the god friend comes to him and he says, don't worry, I will organize whatever you want. And see what happens next day. The queen and the queen both were very happy. It started raining and the whole earth was happy with greenery. King Shrenik told Darini, look what has happened. And they were very happy. And as you can see in the picture, they started going on the procession and he sat right behind her with that ornamental umbrella as per her wish. Now, as the pregnancy is full term, she delivers a beautiful boy, and the nurse comes and gives the message to King, and obviously with all the joy, King distributes all the money and the clothes and everything to the town people. Now, and the time comes they have to name the baby and they name baby as Meg Kumar just because she had that crave of having the Meg. Meg means rain, so she wanted rain while she was only 3 months pregnant, and that is why they called him Meg. Now, as he becomes a child, then he is being brought up by a lot of different nurses from different countries. And the idea behind of getting from different countries all these different nurses is because the development of a child will be very wide. He will understand all different countries and everything. So that is why in those days, when the child is young, if they could afford, they would call the nurses from all different countries, and that's what happened in Kumar's life. Now, as he becomes, he gets older, he is sent to his, in those days they used to send them to Gurukul to have their education. So his Acharya Kalacharya is giving him all the different education. And when he finishes education at the Gurukul, he comes back to the town and he's being married off to 8 beautiful princesses. Now, when he is married, he is having a luxurious life, and one day from his balcony, he saw that all the town people were going to the garden in their city. So he asked his servant. He said, "Where are they all going?" So the servant said, "Tirthankar Bhagwan Mahavir has arrived at the garden Gunsil. The garden's name was Gunsil, and he has arrived there, and that's where everybody is going." So Main Kumar also wanted to go there. So he went there with all his 8 wives. When he went there, Bhagwan Mahavir was preaching, and this obviously his preachings were so many different things, but at this point he was just talking about to the town people like this. Blessed ones, one person received a pot filled with nectar due to his good karmas, but the person did not know its importance. One day he entered the house with feet smeared in mud. Nectar pot was lying in front. He took nectar from it and wasted it in washing mud from the feet. Blessed ones, nectar which can free a human being from dangerous diseases. If used in washing feet, then what will you call it as? Obviously, all the town people said, "Lord, this is really foolish." And then uh, by then Bhagavan continues saying that, "Blessed ones, this human life is even more important and useful than nectar. By spiritual practices, one can be free from birth, death, and old age disease and can achieve moksha. If human birth is wasted in excessive enjoyment, comforts, carelessness, then it will be foolish, like washing feet with nectar." By listening to Bhagwan Mahavir, Meg Kumar got really inspired, and as soon as Bhagwan's preaching got over, he straight away goes to Bhagwan and he says that, "Bhagwan, I would like to take the advantage of this human life, and I would like to join you on this path." Bhagwan says, as usual, "Yes, I am fine to take you on, but you must go and take your parents' permission." He was very pleased that at least Bhagwan said that he will take me in, and he goes to his parents and he's asking for the permission. You can imagine king and queen, they were, first of all, they were very upset because they had lots of dreams, and obviously they know how their son is brought up in all this environment whereby, he was given 10 things before he would ask for even one. So they kept on telling him that it's going to be very hard for you. But obviously, these men, young men, had such a strong mind about it that he definitely wanted to renounce. And this is what young minds are. Once they decide they want to do something, they make sure of it. And this is what made Kumar so he was very determined. At the end, the father said, "Fine, I will agree, I will let you go, but before you go, I have one wish. I would like to, uh, just for one day, I would like to do your Rajabhishek. That means I would like to see you as a king of this city, and he then Mekumar agreed that okay, fine, for a day I will be. And what he does is they celebrated they took the permission of the king, and the priest applied the red dot, and obviously they did the ceremony as if he is a king on that day. And just imagine one day he's king, in 24 hours he was going to renounce all this. That is the strong mind. That's how much strong minded he was. So he did that. And why he's been crowned as king, the parents asked him that what would you like to give, what would you like us to give you as a present? And imagine what he asked. He said, I want Rajoharan and I want Patra, and I want, please call the Vanan, which is like the barber, to come and cut my hair, as I am ready for tomorrow rather than today. And that is what the parents give him. And he goes, they do that for him, and then he goes to Bhagwan Mahavir that here I am, as I said, I wanted to join your path and I come here. So Bhagwan let him join the path, and he feels very happy. So he spends whole day, he was so happy that, oh, I will be talking to all these different sadhus and sadhvi and find out what this life is about. So he was all excited about it until the night fell, and as you can see in the picture where he is sleeping, all the monks, they sleep in one hole on the floor, and just right next to each other. So unfortunately, because he was the newly joined monk, his place was just by the door, and so he was the last one. And as the night rose, what happens is when all the monks and nuns are going for their nature call, they, by mistake, they disturbed him, touching their feet to make Kumar. And make Kumar was thinking, what is this? When I was in this, like, in the normal world, they all used to respect me, they used to talk to me nicely. And now look at this. They don't even care. They are touching their feet to me and they are not saying sorry and nothing. And he was like, already he was very uncomfortable sleeping on the floor like that. Instead of, he is so used to sleep on the big beds and all that. So he was already little disturbed. But on top of that, this incident made him even very, very disturbed. And he was thinking in his mind, um, I shouldn't be staying on this path anymore. I don't think this is for me. And he was all night. He kept on thinking about it. And in the morning, he thought, I must go to Bhagwan Mahavir and tell him this all, that I'm sorry, but I want to go home. I want to quit this path. As he goes in the morning to Bhagwan Mahavir, before he says anything, Bhagwan already knew. And Bhagwan Mahavir told him, mate, you didn't sleep all night. You were troubled with many thoughts, isn't it? And he said, yes, and I want to go home. Bhagwan Mahavir said, mate, please listen to one event before taking any decision. Your agitated mind will definitely get peace once you listen to what I have to say. That's what Bhagwan Mahavir said. And this is how Bhagwan Mahavir starts. He told him many years ago there lived a lot of animals in the forest, and King Sumeruprabh was living in that forest as well, and he was the king of all the elephants. One time, the whole forest took fire, and all the animals started running around. Obviously, Sumeruprabh also started running, but because he was old, he could not run very fast. So the sparkle of the fire started going on his body. He started getting burnt, and he was in search of water and some sort of shelter. When he goes, and he is the last one, he couldn't go very fast. So he comes to a river whereby all the water had dried down, but there was most of it was full with mud. And unfortunately, he tries to go to get that little bit of water he sees, but then he gets stuck in that mud. Right then, one of the oldest enemy of his, he saw this and he took advantage, and he went towards Sumeru Prabhu, and he um, uh, hit him with his very sharp teeth, and nobody could come and help Sumer Prabhu because this elephant was really dangerous. This is how Sumeru Prabhu was stuck in the mud, and he was trying to get out, but he couldn't, and eventually he died there. So, as you can see in the picture, he is asking for help, but nobody could come to help, and that's where he dies. Now, in his next life, Sumeru Prabhu becomes elephant again, and this time his name is Mer Prabhu. So he was once again reborn as the elephant, and again he was the king of his group of elephants. Now, again the fire breaks out, and he thinks to himself, oh, I have seen something like this before. And that he remembers, he recollected his past birth there and then in that life of elephants, and he was frightened to see the fire and hear shrills and cry of the animals. But as soon as the fire stopped, he called all the other elephants and he talked about it. That, listen, this thing keeps on happening in this forest, and so many of us are losing our lives because of the fire. So let's do one thing. Let us try and clean some areas of this forest whereby there is no trees, and we clean the whole ground. So again, if the fire takes place, we can all go for a shelter in that clean place. And that's what they all get together and they do it. Now, once again, there was a fire, and everybody started running towards the place which they cleaned up together. And of course, Mayor Prabhu also went there, and they all, like it was around 8 miles of area, and they all got together in there. And while they were all there, Mayor Prabhu had a little itch on his body. So as you can see in the picture, he is trying to raise his leg to itch, and while he's doing that, there was a little rabbit who came right under his feet. As Mayor tries to put his feet down, he sees this little rabbit and he thinks to himself, oh my God, if I put his feet down, this little rabbit is going to die. And how I like my life, he also loves his life. So how can I put his feet down? With that thought, he keeps his feet high up. And like that, the fire was on for 3 days. And when the fire got over, all the animals started going back in the forest. And Merprov also wanted to go back, but when he tries to put that leg down, he couldn't, unfortunately, because it was up for 3 days. And because he couldn't put his feet down, instead of walking, he fell down. And as he fell down, he died. And that soul of Mer Prabhu is you, but and you are the Mekkumar, the soul of that elephant. Now Bhagwan is trying to explain to him, mate, try to recall you were that Meru Prabhu elephant who in the life of animal saved life of a small creature, and thus due to those good karmas was reborn as prince here. Now, and here, just little bit of trouble in one night. How come you are so put off, and how come you are so angry? Megmuni recalled all the events like a picture from his memory. He was lost in the past, for some time. He tried to see all those events of the past life. So it is like sort of he got his Jati Smaran Jnan. So he saw all his lives that were before. Now, I would like to point out some of the beautiful words that are used by Gautam Swami, how Bhagwan Mahavir explained to Meg Kumar. So I'm quoting it from the book as Bhagwan Mahavir is telling Meg Kumar, Meg Muni, obviously now, that you, Meg Muni, you are young and only the young are energetic enough to bring about massive revolutionary changes. But your thinking must change first. Make instead of dwelling on who kicked you should be worried if anyone was injured because you were in their way. Look at this thinking. We are always, as soon as we are a little bit uncomfortable, we always think of the other person, or that person did that to me. But look at Bhagwan's thinking. So this is a very good lesson for us to learn. And Bhagwan said, you are new here. It will take some time to correct your thinking. Similarly, if we start thinking in this direction, I'm sure we can also change our thinking. A kind soul such as yours deserves a chance in this life to spread that kindness. So if we want to practice more and more kindness, I think the best way is we should try and think of the other person rather than thinking of ourselves. Although sometimes we do get disturbed by somebody's action, but obviously there always is a reason behind everything. Then again, Bhagwan Mahavir tells him, we fail to understand the difference between physical pleasure and eternal happiness. Do not look for peace and happiness somewhere else. They are within you. No one else but you can make yourself happy. So true. Then Bhagwan also tells him that and explains to him the flourished virtue of anukampa. So that is during his elephant life that was within you. Do you want to lose that? Highly rise in your soul. Please do not throw in vain. So these were really kind and such a skillful words that Bhagwan used for Meg Kumar to come back to what he wanted to be. Now, so after that, he's really thinking on to the words of Bhagwan Mahavir. He thought to himself, I got this human life after so much pain, after the darkness of ignorance. I have got the light of knowledge. What will happen if I am lost now? How coward I am! I am trying to lose the unending happiness of the soul in the way of body comfort. Only if I burn my body in finance, my soul will be made like gold, then only I am brave. So he's thinking all this, and then only he can be compassionate towards others who has the power of tolerance. So he's thinking about all this after Bhagwan gave him all those advices. And as soon as he realizes, and as soon as he realized that, oh, it was nothing compared to what I've been through in my previous life, he goes again to Bhagwan Mahavir and he tells him, please ordain me in your Sangh as I'm totally ready now. These little things will not bother me anymore, and I will make sure I'm taking an oath that I will not read any part of my body except my eyes in my lifetime. I surrender everything at your feet. And thus he comes back to Bhagwan Mahavir and he gets initiated properly. So this is the story how Bhagwan Mahavir so skillfully keeps him on the path. This story again, as you know, that we in our Agam, that is sixth Anga Sutra, is called Dharma Katha, Gnata Dharma Katha. In there, there is this story is beautifully explained. It has about 161 slokas of this story, and you will really enjoy going through them. It has got all the description of everything, how Bhagwan tells him, so a lot more than what I have just narrated today. So if you ever get a chance, so and it is our sixth anga, and all our Jain's philosophy always examples to follow, so it becomes easier for us to understand the philosophy, and that is how this agam is full of all the dharma katha, gyata dharma katha. Now, the meaning of Gyata Dharmakatha. Gyata is the full knowledge, that someone who knows much deeper meaning, and Dharmakatha means obviously religious stories. So if you read these stories, automatically you understand the philosophy much better than just the straight philosophy. So I really like this agam, and it is so beautiful to go through it. It is our sixth agam. Uh, in this agam, Sudarma Swami is telling the stories he heard from Bhagwan Mavi to Jambu Swami. The story of Meg Kumar is very well described. It is, and in this agam, it is the first chapter, and the name of the chapter is Uttiksha. Uttiksha. So the meaning of the title, so that it has actually three meanings. Uttiksha means to raise, means something to raise high. And why is it like that? Is because as he raises his leg. But the second meaning is Uchak, that is Uchak mind. That is, his mind got bit agitated, as we know from the rough night. His mind got disturbed and he got put off from Sanyam Bhav. Yeah? And the third meaning of it is by raising high and throw away all the karmic rubbish, as in at the end Megmuni really raises high and he surrenders to Bhagwan Mahi. So it's a beautiful agam to go through. This one is the very first chapter, but it has a lot of other stories as well. And at the end, the commentator, quotes from the narrator are revealed. At the end, the quote from the narrator are revealed by the narrator through this saga. And the saga is Mahurehim, Unehim, Vayanehim, Choyayanti, Ayariya, Sise Kahinchi Khaliye, Jaha Mehu Muni Mahaviro. It means that the just the way Bhagwan Mahavir stabilized Meghmuni, in the same way at any one time, if the disciple slips off the path of renunciation, then Acharya encourages him to stabilize on the path with the sweet and skillful words. As we all know, we don't have Mahavir Bhagwan with us now, but if we are lucky enough to have right guru and right acharya, this does help us a lot because they know how to bring us back onto the path. So this is why this agam is really important agam as well. So now I would like to summarize my talk for today. I would like to point out few things before I summarize. The first thing I would like to say, as per the book quotes, humans by virtue of their mind and intelligence can transcend their life and reach the heights of divinity. The lives of heavenly gods and goddesses may be great because of what they enjoy, but only human life has the potential to reach the liberated soul state. Imagine the highest heaven, which is Sarvata Siddha Viman, is only 12 yojans, so which is not very far away from Siddhasila. Yet one has to come back to the earth to be liberated. Yes, so that's how important it is to be human, to have a human life. In the heavenly being and in the hellish being, everything is very extreme. So pleasure and pain, everything is extreme. Only human life is at right level to think of the most. So the human birth is your opportunity to free yourself from the painful samsara. Secondly, I would like to point out, as per Gautam Swami has pointed it out in the book. So I'm going to read a little bit from the book. Gautam Swami says, Mahavir's tact in explaining Shraman concepts and in inspiring a young novice impressed me because I realized that he was bringing about a social revolution in our society. Mavi's idea of ordaining young boys and girls without bias or of caste or gender, and of encouraging them to devote their youthful energy to the spiritual as well as social development is revolutionary. It is different from our existing tradition of sannyas ashram, in which, of course, as we saw that was prevalent at the time, in which only the of the forest, uh, elderly head for the forest in full-time spiritual pursuit. Full-time devotion to spiritual matters during youth has been rare in the society. The awakened youth that are joining this Raman movement stand united and will usher in a new golden social order through a massive transformation of the mindset of all society. I felt confident that they would succeed because the inspired young minds have the energy and receptive ingenuity to move beyond orthodoxy or beyond uh, petty discriminatory practices. So, so beautifully written by Gautam Swami how he felt from how Madhya Bhagwan inspired making me. And thirdly, I would like to invite um, Mr. Soham Shah. Now, how how we can bring about the change in today's day. While the children are at young age, it is good to teach them these values. We are fortunate with Acharyaji's vision that, as you all know, here at SCVP, we have been encouraging children from a young age to learn and practice Jainism. This has benefited by many, and Mr. Soham Shah is one of them who is with us today to share his experiences. Soham joined our school at the young age of 7 and was also my student, and that is why I would like to say a few words. Uh, and so let's hear him out. So over to you, Soham. Is he there?
Yeah, Jai Janindra, can you all hear me okay? Jai Janindra.
Yeah, thank you, Soham. Carry on.
Hi, welcome, Soham.
Great, hi, thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. Thank you very much, Hina Auntie and SCVP. I mean, it's great to see so many people here, and I hope everyone is keeping well and safe during, of course, these highly unusual times. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Soham, and as Hina Auntie mentioned, I've been invited here to speak today a little bit about my experiences with SCVP Jain School, and also more broadly on my personal experiences with Jainism, especially on the practical applicability of our religion, and how understanding the philosophy of Jainism has had a personal, profound impact on my life. So before I get into my personal experiences, I think it would be good just to give you all a little background on myself and my history. So I grew up in Reading and I went to school here. So from a young age, it was really down to my mum to introduce me to Jainism and teach me about the scriptures and the mantras and the philosophy, all pivoting around ahimsa, non-violence, karma theory, and pretty much everything else in between. And despite living relatively far away from London, my mum enrolled me and my brother at the Jain school. So from a very young age, I remember many Friday evenings after school, driving an hour down the motorway to get into London, and then of course being taught by Hina Auntie herself. So these are some really fond memories. So it's really nostalgic and great to be back here speaking to all of you today. So, I mean, it was very easy, not to, and the dedication and perseverance whilst me and my brother were very young really ensured that we, fully understood and appreciated the beauty of the Jain religion and the morals, the values and the principles that I learned at Jain school. And the people I interacted with there will, of course, always stay with me for the rest of my life. So I studied economics at university and I graduated 2.5 years ago. Since then, I've been working for the American investment bank, Goldman Sachs, within capital markets. And I really can't say enough how the intense pressures of my job working at Goldman Sachs have been eased by the things and the tools I've practiced and learnt in Jainism. So the rest of what I want to say today is really split into two segments. Kind of firstly, I'll share a little bit about my own personal journey with Jainism, my understanding of the religion, how I see it, and really how we can ensure the appeal of Jainism remains relevant to youth of today, who are, endlessly immersed in consumerism and material culture. And then secondly, I'll talk a little bit about why Jain school is such an important aspect in understanding our religion. So learning about Jainism when I was younger really inspired me and my brother to run what we called vegetarian days at school, where we basically managed to convince our headmaster to hold an entire day where breakfast, lunch and dinner, because it was a day and a boarding school as well, were served completely meat and egg free to over 900 students. And the success of doing this and the actually overwhelmingly positive response and feedback we had led to a featured article in a local newspaper, and more importantly, I think it educated people in a practical way and how easy it is to follow a vegetarian diet and its health benefits. And this of course is completely along the path of ahimsa at its very core. And then, the vegetarian days that we held also extended into becoming a termly event for many, many years ahead. And, a lot of the people who do eat meat do so, I feel, out of a lot of blind ignorance, because often, they've grown up doing so and they don't really know or they don't really think of doing anything different. So a small event like this had a huge knock-on effect that was obviously, underpinned by the very essence and the central covenant of Jainism, which is ahimsa and non-violence. And in fact, even some of my school friends themselves also converted to becoming vegetarian as well, which was a great win. And then it also, extends further. So a few months ago, at the beginning of the lockdown, my brother and I, we gave a talk on Zoom around what we called the methodology of change. And essentially, it was an exploration of how Jainism can be applied to our lives in a very practical way, kind of taking the core principles of ahimsa and ekantvad and a whole bunch of others, to approach Jainism, not necessarily as a religion, but as a way of life. And I think this is key in making Jainism seem much more applicable and relevant to the youth of today. We need a lot more emphasis away from doing rituals and away from any belief in superstition to actually focus on the tools of Jainism and what makes it a practical philosophy that is actually hugely relevant to the struggles, that people are facing today. And some of the people that I've spoken to, just within work and at university, etc., have often said to me, Soham, why do we need religion? Why should we follow something that cannot be proven by science? And actually, to the contrary, I would say that so much of the science behind Jain philosophy has in fact been proved by modern science in just the last 50 years, from our understanding of metaphysics, the alignment of planets, understanding of atoms, realization population of bacteria and microbes. I mean, this was all documented over 2,500 years ago by our sages. And when you think about that, it's absolutely mind-blowing that literally thousands of years ago, our scriptures documented and discussed in great depth, the nature of atoms, something that, science has only proved today. And I think, physics aside, Jainism also gives us the tools to better our mental health. And I know a lot of people, especially a lot of young people right now, are suffering, not being able to go out, not being able to meet friends, struggling, applying for jobs with exams and schools. And what the Jain philosophy offers can radically stop these negative emotions and feelings and really kind of give us a higher purpose and a higher sense of self. And, I think it's about shifting our perspective so that we see less of the me, less of the I and the ego, and start looking at the world from a more wholesome and broader horizon. So Jainism for me has really been that cornerstone that has supported me in times of hardship and trouble. And that's really given me a purpose and philosophy to follow. And that, spurs me to try and be the best version of myself every day. And I really feel that it comes down to the fact that a lot of people have just come to accept, stress, anxiety, negativity, almost as being like the new normals of functioning within modern society. And it's so easy for people to constantly, succumb to feeling overworked, under pressure, and really stretched to their limits, that people severely neglect their physical and mental health. And I read the other day that 65% of 18 to 25-year-olds have actually reported feelings of depression, anxiety, or stress in the current lockdown situation. And today we encounter, and especially young people have encountered levels of prolonged stress that our ancestors 50, 60, 100 years ago simply never experienced. And this can cause burnout and severe unhappiness, and it really is a pretty huge worry for our advancing societies, because as technology increases at such a rapid rate, we're seeing new inventions being created, new ways of communicating. We've got Zoom here, for example. People's mental well-being is decreasing. And we've got these expectations on our shoulder that at an ever increasingly younger age only get more complex as we grow older. And a lot of this, I feel, comes from the intense pressures that we get from social media. So Facebook, Instagram, the new platform TikTok as well, can be extremely toxic places for young people. And we can and how we perceive the world and our view of the world is very much shaped by what we see on these social media platforms, which are often very false and just portray a very limited view of the reality. So it's about feeling having the passion and the joy driven out of people when they see all of this negativity. And really it comes down to the point of how Jainism can take you out of this spiral. And for a lot of people, Jainism and the philosophy behind Jainism can be that savior, can be that way to kind of elevate yourself out of the toxicity of today's time. And really I kind of feel that it comes down to two core philosophical standpoints. Firstly, a shift in perspective, and then a subsequent detachment. And when I say detachment, I don't mean, giving everything up and taking dick shot, etc. But I'm talking about, really being aware of our emotions and what we do and how it influences us, so that we can, really take a step back and easily appreciate that, everything, and I mean like absolutely everything around us, is completely temporary and completely transient. What we have now will never necessarily come again, because time is constantly flowing and changing, and we should really make the most of every moment. And I think this perspective and this way of thinking is central to Jainism. And ahimsa isn't just applicable to others, but first and foremostly it's to ourselves. When we look back on our lives, how much mental energy we wasted on immaterial and inconsequential things, thoughts that necessarily haven't really served any purpose other than to induce unnecessary stress or anxiety. So it's really about, for me anyway, learning to be in control of these instincts so that we can have full awareness of our thoughts, our speech, on our action. And Jainism, of course, talks about having all three of these in perfect sync with one another, as hard as that may be. So really learning to detach from any situation or thought train, I feel is, really fundamental in gaining control. And part of that process is learning about harnessing our inner calm and that feeling of being at one with yourself. And I think meditation is one of the great ways that we can do that. And this is, why I say that Jainism is not a religion, it's a way of life. Because when you strip away the pomp and the rituals, at its very essence, Jainism is really about finding self-realization. And that road to self-realization that Jainism unlocks through its method and practice and philosophy makes it a way of living, a way of seeing the world in this enlightened and alternative perspective. And, people have said to me as well, Soham, I don't believe in karma theory. I just don't believe it. And I just find that the most mind-boggling thing for anyone to say, because if you say to me, you don't believe in karma and you don't believe in the karma theory, then you're basically saying to me that you don't believe in physics. Because, Newton said every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And this fundamental law of physics is essentially karma in a nutshell, right? Because everything we do has an equal and opposite reaction. And you might not see the fruits of that immediately, but you definitely will eventually. And, you might think, oh, no one's watching, so there's going to be no consequences. But at the end of the day, the universe most definitely is. So I think just the last point I'd like to make really is just around the power of sound. And more specifically, when I say sound, I specifically, mean the power of our mantras. I can't stress enough how many profound, personal experiences I've had from, reciting our mantras and stotras and prayers. I really feel that they can protect us and, unlock aspects of our personality that would otherwise remain hidden. So without going on for too much longer, I definitely have to say that no one should underestimate how powerful our mantras are. And it's a very personal experience, when you really get in tune with them. And if you actually Google it as well, you'll see so many stories about, people reciting Nilka mantras for 24 hours in a row, and then, having all sorts of miraculous things and visions, etc., happen to them. So it's definitely something that people, I feel, especially young people, should feel blessed to have access to, these very auspicious, very ancient sounds. And I think when it comes down to it, understanding this matters is extremely important. And I think that's where the Jain school offers a really fantastic platform to learn about Jainism and our philosophy in a very modern and super practical way, because I think for the youth, that is what's really needed. It's about taking these ancient principles, about taking this philosophy and understanding how all of it is completely practical and applicable to our modern life and our modern way of living. And, the encouragement for me from a young age came from my mum, and it was her motivation of making me go to Jain school and learn about Jainism. And, it's allowed me to learn a different way of living, about being truthful and trying to be, a good human being, because whatever pain we feel, others feel too. And, so the crux of what the Jina's teachings have been, to collect blessings from everyone, even, one-sense beings. And I guess coronavirus is an odd example of this, because the virus itself, right, is a one-sensed living organism that is literally attacking the whole world. So at some point, we all collectively must have harmed these souls somewhere at some point. So all we can say to coronavirus is Michami Dukram and hope that it goes away as soon as possible, and we all get out of this lockdown. So I guess my last point is just to say, please encourage young people that and have influence over to attend Jain school, because they really need your support, and it comes from the support of our elders, the people that we look up to really guide us into the right path. And learn about how amazing our Jain religion is, and then spread the teachings of Jainism. You see a lot of religions around the world have spread their roots so easily because they have great advocates and great young youth advocates of the religion. That's where I personally feel Jainism doesn't necessarily do enough justice. The religion itself is non-sectarian. It has applicability to every single person from all walks of life. And I think the more we can do to spread the message of ahimsa and the Jain philosophy, the more people will not just be nicer to one another, but also to themselves. So I hope I've given you some interesting sound bites, and thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me today. Jai Jinendra.
Thank you so much, Soham. That was wonderful. That was really wonderful. And all the thing goes to your parents as they put in so much hard work to drive you every Friday to Channa Vidyapit and bringing you. And as you all can see, how he has turned from a child to a beautiful young man with all these morals and everything in him. So this is what it does. As I said, the young people have lots of energy to take us further and further. And so I would like to end our talk, today's talk. If anybody has any questions, we both are there to answer if you have any questions. Otherwise, we can end tonight's session. Any questions?
Yes, there is one from Bakul Bhai and Rita Ben. Bakul Bhai, would you, Rita Ben?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Soham and Hina Ben. That was really, really good, really inspiring, both of you. Soham, I have a question for you. You work for Goldman Sachs, you said? And
yes.
So it must be a really, really busy job. I can just imagine all sorts of hours. How do you manage to stay centered?
Yeah, so for me, it's about really finding that balance between, work and my personal life. And not just finding that balance, but then also during my personal life and during my personal time outside of work, what I actually do, because you could be working, 12, 13 hours a day. And then when you log off of work, you can be on social media or be scrolling through Instagram or TikTok. And I don't think that would do anyone's sanity any justice. So for me, and especially during this lockdown period, my time outside of work has been, spending time with my family. Every single day we sit down and we do an hour of, or at least an hour of mantra. We do jap, we recite the Bhaktamala Stotra as a family. That brings me a lot of peace personally. To get connected with my soul and my atma. So, a lot of these smaller things. And then, of course, having, a healthy work-life balance in terms of also physically trying to stay fit. Although I have to admit, I haven't been doing so well at that in the last couple of weeks or so. But I try my best to, make sure I can encompass, a healthy spirit, soul, mind, and body, so that, whilst I'm at work, I don't experience any burnout. And, whilst I'm, going through the motions and what is a very intense and highly pressured environment, even though I've been working at home for almost a year now, since the pandemic started, making sure I can stay sane and centered, like you said. And for sure, like the Jain religion and just understanding. And, as I was saying earlier about this perspective shift, if I would feel, a little bit burnt out, or I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, it's just kind of shifting your perspective to understand that how you're feeling right now is only temporary, and that, in a day's time, in a week's time, your situation is going to change. There are so many new opportunities across and coming up for you in the horizon, that you shouldn't dwell on any emotions that you're feeling presently. So it's really just about, self-talk, and trying your best to stay afloat and stay connected with everyone as much as possible.
Thank you, Soham.
Thank you, Soham.
There is one more last question that's come through. Once again, I have so many questions to ask you, Soham, but I will stop myself. But there is one from Nikesh Parekh. Nikesh Bhai, are you online? Can I ask you to?
Hi, I'm not sure whether you can hear me or not.
Yeah, I can hear you, Jai
Hi,
Jinendra. Please go ahead and ask
Jai
Soham.
Jinendra. Sorry, I've not put the video because my internet isn't very good, and
No problem, no
and
problem.
so
We can hear
then
you.
it will cut. But I just, you know, it was so interesting hearing Soham speak, and you know, clearly so articulate, bright, intelligent, and that demonstrated by obviously working for a company like Goldman Sachs. I'm a GP, and one of the and in so many aspects of life, you know, work for me is, you know, is wonderful, because day in, day out I sort of I'm able to reconcile what I'm doing with my grounding in Jainism, and I have a lot of friends that work in the city for different banks, and I sometimes, but none of them are Jain, and although there are so many Jains that work in them, and I try to wonder how, when you have a philosophical standpoint that comes from Jainism, how you reconcile that in a conflict that may occur when you know that you're working for a company that is very well known to invest in a lot of invest their money in a lot of ways that are very exploitative and contribute to a lot of harm to a lot of people day in, day out in the world.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I can probably tackle this in two approaches. So firstly, there's no denying that Goldman Sachs and many other banks within the financial industry do invest in oil, in tobacco, in industries that are not you know, great. But the way I see it is, me being part of Goldman Sachs, I'm able to influence that decision and influence where Goldman Sachs invest their money, invest their time and their resources in the best way possible. And to such an extent that Goldman Sachs does have a lot of very good initiatives that are helping the environment, helping the world, and making the place, you know, making the place better for everyone. You know, there is a huge effort from the company and from many firms and banks from across the industry to invest in sustainable energy, in green finance, in green bonds, that is helping to drive our change and our move away from using coal, using gas, into moving and transitioning towards more eco-friendly ways of generating power. And there is a huge fund that has been established by Goldman Sachs to help support the investing in renewable energies and green products. And it doesn't just stop there. Like, Goldman also have a huge initiative called 10,000 Small Businesses. And within that, they literally go out to 10,000 small businesses and they go in and invest in them. They help them, they give them the support, they give them the consulting and the advice that they wouldn't necessarily have access to otherwise, to help support them, because the firm understands and appreciates that it's not just all about, you know, making money and making profit at the end of the day. It is about giving back to the community, because without the community, a firm like Goldman Sachs just simply wouldn't exist. And the way that I reconcile my own personal beliefs with working at an investment bank like that is that if I weren't there, and if I weren't in the position that I had, you know, someone else might have my role and they may not have the Jain understanding and the Jain philosophy that I have, and so may direct the firm down a different route. And I'm one employee out of 40,000, right? But imagine the change that Mahavir Bhagwan, he was one person, was able to enact. So I'm a very strong believer in, you know, one person being able to you know, make a large impact and a large change, and it's cumulative as well. I'm one person, I'm one Jain person within Goldman Sachs. There are others who are also within Jain people within Goldman Sachs, and I'm sure there are other people within our Jain community, kids my age, who are working within the financial industry. And it's these philosophies and these teachings that we can bring where we can then influence the decisions that are made, you know, at the highest levels within the firm. And, you know, as I progress in my career, I will be able to have larger circles of influences. I'll be able to network with more people. And the teachings that I've got within Jainism, I can use that to then influence the decisions that the company would make, so that, you know, it goes down a path and goes down a route that is equitable, that is ethical, that adheres to the morals and the values and the principles of Jainism. So that's personally how I see it, but a great question. Thanks for asking.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Soham.
Thank you very much.
Wow. It's been such an amazing evening, Hinaben, with your Meg Kumar story, and we have our own Soham Kumar here. And it ties in so beautifully that, you know, Soham, it's been a long time since I saw you, and it's an absolute pleasure. I think I saw you probably about 15 years ago or something like that. And you are really a fantastic advocate for SCVP and for Jainism. And we need more people like you to really get the youth involved, and, you know, and as you say, really get the message across that Jainism is a way of life. And we need that now more than ever. And all the science behind Jainism you mentioned, and all Ahimsa and Ekantavada, they are so relevant now. And it is indeed a pleasure to have Hinaben and Soham tonight. And I thank you from Sri Chanda Vidyapith. Soham, you talked about sutras and mantras, and I would like you to conclude tonight's session by reciting the Manglik, please. And I know you know it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, sure, of course, no worries.
Thank you
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.
And before he starts, I would just say, Michami Dukram, if we have said anything wrong or against Jainism, I thank you all for listening to us. Carry on, Soham.
Soham, to you.
Right, if everyone could please fold their hands and close their eyes. Yattari Mangalam Arihanta Mangalam Siddha Mangalam Sahu Mangalam Kevali Pannato Dhammo Mangalam Yattari Lokuttama Arihanta Lokuttama Siddha Lokuttama Sahu Lokuttama Kevali Pannato Dhammo Lokuttamo Jattari Sharanam Pavajjami Arihante Sharanam Pavajjami Siddhe Sharanam Pavajjami Sahu Sharanam Pavajjami Kevali Pannatam Dhammam Saranam Pavajjami Angute Amritavase Lapti Tada Banda Shri Guru Gautam Samaniye Sadhai Manvanjit Varadada Pave Vauna Bhaviye Pave Tije Dan Pave Dharma Radiye Pave Keval Gnan Prabhu Bhave Pad Nirman. Jai Jinendra Om Aram. Jai Jinendra.
Jai Jinendra. Jai Jinendra.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow, what a wonderful uplifting session we had this evening. Just wanted to say a few words regarding our children at Sri Chanda Vidyapith. We continue every Friday with the Sutra classes as well as our normal children's classes. Please do spread the word, and you can see how Soham has grown into such a handsome, intelligent, and what a wonderful a person And certainly I would urge all of you to have your either whether it's your grandchildren or your own children to attend the Jain classes that we do on Friday nights. Next week we have Vinod Bhai Kapashi telling us about Ajit Santi, and that'll be for the next 2 weeks. So do attend, and I wish you all a wonderful weekend, a very peaceful weekend, and do look after yourself. And if I have made any mistakes, Michami Bukram to you all, and see you next week.